Welcome into Buccaneers Total Access. Later on in the show, we're going to have head coach Todd Bowles, but now I am so excited to be joined by defensive line and run game coordinator Kacy Rodgers. Coach, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm sure we were just talking about it before this. You are running on no sleep, so you get all the brownie points for still coming on here and talking with us after, especially also, I know, a tough loss emotionally for everybody. But what did it feel like in the locker room afterward, and kind of the message you guys had for the guys where, I mean, fought till the very end, played in a lot of ways really well in certain areas of the game. What was kind of the feeling afterward and the message you had?
Well, the thing is, like you said earlier, you always hate not coming away with the win, but the encouraging part is probably one of the better games that we played as a whole. You know, we played as a team. Then you look at us from the defensive perspective. We had a lot of young guys stepping up, and guys were making plays and flying around, and that was a very good team we played last night. So that's the stuff to build on going forward.
And I know, especially in this area of what you especially are kind of in charge of here, looking at especially the defensive line, the Chiefs had only given up 12 sacks in 7 games coming in. They were just 1 off the NFL low. But you guys got to Mahomes for 4 sacks, which is the most they've allowed in a single game. What do you feel like you guys were able to do to help get to them more than any other team had been able to this year?
Well, the thing, guys went out and tried to execute the game plan to the deal. And then for just coaching the defensive line and being around those guys, we go into each game kind of knowing if we make plays, we kind of the catalyst, because it starts up front. So we feel like if we make plays, everybody feeds off of us, and that's kind of what happened the other night.
I mean, man, Vita, what a game from him. He extends his team lead to 5 sacks this season and his career total to 28.5. Take us first through his 2 different sacks in the game.
Well, the first one we came in, we were running a pressure that we were kind of with a little pick stunt between him and Vontae on the inside. It kind of got jacked up a little bit because they slid the protection to where we were stunning. So they just kind of kept working, and eventually the pick we wanted showed up, and he came around and got him on the ground. It was good. It really was good because it was good coverage downfield because he held it for longer than he should have, and we were able to get there.
Interesting. And then what about the other one?
The other one was like, it was a 4-man rush, really good coverage on the back end, and they really, with Yaya and Joe and them on the edges, did a good job all night long of collapsing the pocket, and then it forced them to step up where Vita was, and that's where he was on that. So they did a good job of working together. You know, you heard the old adjective, rush and coverage works together, and really that's what happened last night. You know, it's really because, one, you're scared to death with Mahomes because he's dangerous in the pocket, but he's even more dangerous when he's out of the pocket. So a point of emphasis going into the game was to kind of make sure we keep him in the pocket. And I thought they did a good job for trying to execute that.
Yeah, he also had a career high 10 tackles and 3 quarterback hits. So we saw the sacks, of course, but take us through the rest of his game and what really stood out to you, and thoughts about just where this game even ranks for him career-wise.
Well, since I've been around, and I would say this is definitely one of his most productive all the way around. You know, you see in the past, Vita dominated in the run, or Vita had a couple, and this time he had sacks and stops in the run game. And that's kind of what we felt going into the year, you know. We didn't want Vita just to be a good player. We want him to keep trying to strive to be a great player, you know. And in a game like that against arguably one of the best teams in the league, he really stepped up.
I know that he has double the sacks of any other player at his position in the league. What makes him so effective at getting to the quarterback? And explain to us how impressive it is, particularly at that position, to have the kind of sack numbers he does.
Well, the thing is, going into my 22nd year in this league, and if you look back through the history of the league, somebody Vita's size is usually, the NFL is very down specific. You know, you usually have guys that play first and second down, run off the field on third, and guys that don't play first and second and run on the field. But Vita is that unique talent that he has the ability to play first, second, and third down. And if you go back through the history of the league, how many players over 340 pounds play third down? So that's just remarkable in the history of the league. You know, you have some 310s, but no 340 plus guys over. So that's a credit to him and conditioning, because rushing the passer, you know, is one of the most tiring and excruciating things you can do, because you want the physical exertion that you putting out each snap. It's just tremendous. Then to be as heavy as he is, it's just a credit to him.
We're talking to defensive line coach Casey Rodgers. Now, how about Calijah also? You guys, your little duo in there, each providing a pair of sacks. Take us through Calijah's 2 sacks.
Well, it's funny how you say little duo.
Yeah.
You just talk about the big guy, now let's talk about the little guy.
Which I love the idea of Calijah being the quote little guy.
Let's talk about the little guy now. But the one thing about Calijah, he is so explosive. The thing is, when his first step quickness is as quick as a lot of defensive ends in this league, and his first one came on another one that was a 4-man rush, and that the quarterback stepped up and he was right where he should have been in the pocket, and that rush and coverage worked well together. His second one was, to me, the most impressive, because as you know, watching Mahomes or whatever from a game plan, so you don't really want him to escape to our left, his right, because he's doubly dangerous with the run and pass, and he was escaping to our right. We were in a little pressure where Jordan was coming free up the middle and flushed him out, and Calijah had to get out for contain, and he did. And the thing is, that's an interesting matchup. You got Mahomes against a 285-pound defensive lineman, and Calijah got him on the ground in open space. That was impressive.
Yeah, that is impressive. How about your line overall, looking at the whole game? We've talked about some of these specific plays and especially some of the pressure on the quarterback, but game overall, I know you guys typically, I don't know, maybe give a grade to your guys. Right. What kind of stands out about them overall?
Well, as a matter of fact, I told you right before I came on, I just met with them, and we went through the game, and the thing was, everybody kind of contributed. That's the thing I liked about it. You know, they didn't have as big as stats as, say, Calijah and Vita, but Logan on the double teams, Will on the getting the TFL, Ern didn't have a stat, but he was right where he needed to be. And CJ stepped in and played with Greg bent down, and he was where that's the thing we like about it. You know, everybody contributed.
And I know you're also the run game coordinator, so run defense in this game, what stood out to you about the team's performance?
Well, the thing that you like best is what they pose so many matchups. We've always in the past been a team that wanted to outnumber you in the box. We're saying, you're not running, we're going to load up in the box and putting so much pressure on our secondary. Right now, we got some youth in our secondary, so we had to take that defender away. So we're saying we're going to be a little short, but we got to rally to the run. And I thought they did a good job on that. They had a lot of carries. I think they ended with 3.5 a carry. With as much split safety coverage as we played last night, you'll live with that.
Yeah, for sure. And I know we talked about how big Vita is, but he did lose weight this offseason.
No question.
Which I love how big he is, that he can lose weight and still be one
big.
of the biggest people
still
out
be
there.
Big.
Still be big. Tell me about that process this offseason of when you learned this was happening, how you guys had talked about it, how that was going to affect things about what you thought about his play this year. Can just kind of take us through all of that this offseason of what you learned about it and how you were going to implement things differently.
Well, Vita, right before the offseason started, when we broke and had our one-on-one before he left for the offseason, had told me that he was wanted to make some changes just in his overall condition and whatever. And if you remember from the past, we had a gentleman here by the name of Ndamukong Suh, and they are still really good friends. And if you know anything about Suh, he has always kept himself in the ultimate physical shape. So this offseason, Vita got with him and just said, we're gonna get away, and just made a total commitment to fitness and eating right and everything. And now the fruits of his labor is paying off, because we're in the middle of the season, and a lot of people be happy with 5 sacks all year. And you're at the halfway, you know what I'm saying, for an interior guy the size that he is. So that's the thing. But it's really a credit to him making a decision to make the sacrifice for the team, because so goes him, sometimes so goes the team.
Yeah. For sure. And how have you seen it affect his play? Have there been moments that you've been like, I see that's the difference maybe for him?
Well, the stamina, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I'm trying to remember, I think he played 58, 60 snaps last night. That's a lot of snaps for a guy his size. And we try to do a good job of rotating, but the way I think we ended up playing 80-something overall on defense, so he played the majority of them. And couldn't have did that last year because the stamina wasn't there.
So how have you seen this season compared to other years with him overall, with his play, areas that you've seen growth in, or just kind of as you look back at the years of this year's Vita, what stands out?
Well, having been with him now for about 5-6 seasons, from year 1 to year 6, you just see the growth really in all areas of his game. As far as technically, he's gotten better. against the run. He's getting better in the rush. But now I also add the fact that people don't realize he's a jokester, this and that, but he's an extremely intelligent player. If we have a bead on something going into the game, while this formation they're going to do this, he in practice all week he's already on it. Oh, watch, here come the power, here come the sweep, here come the. He's very heady, and he does a great job of talking to the guys, and he's been excellent for Calijah, who's still a very young player, Logan, who's still a young player. To have him out there with them two young guys, you can see the growth in them because of him.
That's great. And yeah, I mean, you see him as a vet now that it's so wild to think that, yeah, he is one of the kind of elder statesmen of the area. And I mean, there have been some incredible leaders on this defense and team overall in recent years. How have you seen him step into that leadership role, and what kind of a leader? We hear about, vocal leaders, lead by example guys, like the Levantes who maybe aren't going to say a whole lot but are still a leader. How have you seen him like you said, he can be a jokester, and then he's also out there being, it sounds like, pretty vocal on the field. What are the ways you would define him as a leader, and some of the maybe tangible ways you've seen it affect those other guys you mentioned?
Well, you just hit the nail on the head. Actually, when I first got here, he wouldn't hardly say a word. You'd tell him go, he would go do it and do his job, no problem. But now, for us losing certain guys, and he's becoming, like you said, one of the elder statesmen, he had to be more than just watch me do it. He had to be vocal and call the team up and break the huddles down, this and that. And really just knowing him, that is not his natural comfort zone. He just kind of always wanted to be a soldier. Now he's taking a general role. Hey, I got to be a leader out front, and I got to set the example of the way we want them to follow. And that's the biggest step I've seen in him from that aspect.
I think anyone who follows him on Instagram has seen the relationship he has with Tom Moore, and that maybe that has given a window into the joking. It is so. Tell us a little bit about that side of Vita, like you said, the jokester and all that.
That's the joke. Anytime we have a team meeting forward, they rib each other. Him and Coach Moore, they constantly on it. But I'm just saying, it's genuine. When Coach Moore is one of the most respected guys in the building on our side, and to see him and Vita go at it and crack jokes, it's just. But that just shows Vita's personality, because I think it popped up on my feed. I'm like, Vita got Coach Moore on his. But that's just
what a get.
But that's Vita in a nutshell. You go over this guy is joking on social media, doing this and that, and then here in about an hour he's gonna go battle usually two defenders at one time. So that's 600 plus pounds he's gonna take on every snap, and it's just. We're lucky to have him. That's
awesome. And then, so what are the biggest things you feel like you're still working on with him, a guy that is so talented? Where does he still have room for growth?
Consistency. You know what I'm saying? Like you saw a 2-sack game here. You want to see a 2-sack game in 2 weeks from now. You see what I'm saying? Just for him being consistent. And when he gets in trouble, we feel like he can really be a dominant player, but he gets in trouble if it lets his techniques slap. I'm always constantly on. I just got on it in our meeting room for not using his hands in certain, because when he uses his hands, he's as dominant than anyone in the league.
All right, we're going to take a quick break here on Buccaneers Total Access. Again, later in the show, we're going to have head coach Todd Bowles. We're talking right now with defensive line and run game coordinator Kacy Rodgers, brought to you by Advent Health. This is Buccaneers Radio. Welcome back into Buccaneers Total Access. We're talking to defensive line coach and run game coordinator Kacy Rodgers, and we talked a lot about Vita that last segment. I feel like we probably could talk about him the entire show, but let's get a little bit more into Calijah as well. And first, let's talk about the way they influence each other on the field, of the way they're able to play off of each other and what it makes offenses do, but then also their impact on each other from a personality standpoint and off the field.
Well, I think the best way with those two is to hit it from the start. We drafted Calijah 2 years ago, the number one pick, our first round pick in that draft. And sometimes when you have a first round pick, they think they know it all, or they come in that they are just the hot thing going over. But from the first day Calijah walked in our room, he walked in just a humble young man and willing to learn, and just naturally gravitated to Vita. And, from the first day Calijah walked in, we put him in the starter. He didn't ease his way in. Yeah. First group up, you go out there. Yeah. So, and Vita, the type person he is and everything, he brought him along, you know what I'm saying? And they are two peas in a pod. It's funny. They feed off each other. Sometimes we'll be in a situation, hey, Calijah, you got to get the rush. I'm going to hold down the run. They just kind of play off of each other, and they excellent communication on and off the field, which I think is good because sometimes you have a professional relationship with your teammates. You have worked together, this and that, but they have a private relationship off the field as well. They text each other, they constantly in communication, and that all helps.
And then I know that Calijah now both years, like you said, he got thrown into the fire of you were going to be starting right away, but now both years he's had to deal with injuries, especially early in the season. How have you seen him handle that, and just speak to how hard that is to do, especially as a rookie and early in the season, and then to come back in and be able to make an impact still right after that?
Well, the thing is, Calijah, even though dealing with the injury, sometimes guys come in, they get injured or whatever, and you lose track of them for 3 or 4 weeks. But he stayed in us with the meetings, between getting his treatment schedule, staying involved in the meetings, this and that. And, Calijah embraces his draft status. He feels like they took a chance on me. They made me their first round pick, and I want to give them their money's worth. So he embraces it. So he wants to be good. He's striving to be good. And to be a young player, he has a lot of ideas, and he's kind of a quiet guy, but he will open up in the meeting room. Hey, maybe coach, can we do it this way? Can we do it that? He is constantly involved and active, and between him and Vita, it becomes a good mesh.
What are the biggest ways you've seen him grow since his rookie year?
Just more of a student of the game. Technically, he came from a system where all they did was jump off the ball, which fits right in his alley. Now he's coming to our system where our guys, then defensive linemen, you get to jump off the ball, but now you got to squeeze these blocks. Then, by the way, we might have a call where you got to cover the back down the middle. Hey, we kind of multifaceted defense, so there's more jobs you have to. But he's embraced that. He's highly intelligent, and he doesn't make a lot of mental mistakes. So, and we have a complex defense, so he is constantly evolving with that, and he takes the challenge what we ask him to do.
Yeah, I had wanted to ask about that of always hearing that A, Todd Bowles' defense is no joke to learn. B, he asks a lot of each position group in sort of unique different ways that maybe they wouldn't always have to do in other defenses. How does that apply to defensive line specifically, of the ways that being a defensive lineman in Todd Bowles' defense versus others, what that might make you have to learn or grow or do?
Well, you could go some teams, you could say it's 32 NFL teams, and there is 16 plus teams that never ask a defensive lineman to go backwards, so to speak. They are always going forward. Coverage is obstinate. They don't mean nothing to them. And our system depends on certain calls. One, we could have to cover somebody man to man. That's kind of something defensive line. We're zone droppers in a couple of calls if the formation dictates that we are a zone dropper. Then you notice 2 weeks ago against Atlanta, the first third down, we go after him. Vontae comes free. Calijah was running in the middle. He was covering the tight end coming across the middle perfectly. So that's what I'm saying. We ask a lot of them, which helps with the complexity and the disguise, and you forcing the quarterback. We got a free runner running at your head. You think somebody's going to be there, and we fill in that vacated zone with a defensive line. That's amazing. Yeah, and I know we've talked now about his ability to rush the passer and even drop in coverage when necessary. The run game, I know, was an area that you guys had wondered what his abilities might be in. No question.
Yeah, we had wondered how that was going to look. Thankfully, you had Vita to take up the whole line just in case. But how has Calijah maybe outperformed his expectations even when it comes to the run game?
Well, the beauty about the defense Todd runs here is we don't want to handcuff the player. With Calijah, we look at his skill set and say, he's probably not going to play this block the way some of the bigger guys we had. Will's going to play it, or Sue played it, or Akeem, but former guys we've had, probably not going to play it the way Logan plays it. But so here we kind of created a niche that fits him. You know what I'm saying? We still got to stop the run, but we got to do something that he's able to do with his quickness and with his explosiveness, and it works for him. It works for us.
Yeah, we're talking to defensive line coach and run game coordinator Cacy Rodgers. What is typically the jump you see of first year to second year for defensive linemen? What are the things that coming in as a rookie are really challenging, and then are they able to typically kind of grow in or get more used to by the second year?
Well, year two, you get the schedule down, for these young guys coming out, because they may play 12 games. We play 12. if you include the preseason, by
Yeah,
week
already.
9.
We're already
Then
there.
you got another 9 more. Then you hope to still playing for the playoffs.
Yeah,
So
it's almost like 2 whole seasons for
So
them.
getting past the rookie wall, your body, taking care of your body, and then all the information you're getting. Because each game, if you've never been in this league, every week is an adventure. So like going into year 2, you kind of know what to expect, and if you play common opponents, you kind of know what you're getting into. Year 1, everything is new. So that's,
yeah. How about Logan Hall? What have you seen? I feel like sometimes with guys like Vita and
Right.
Calijah making some big splash plays, he doesn't always get as much attention. But I felt like, especially earlier this season, Coach had said that he'd seen some of his best games that he's played as a Buccaneer so far. So tell us, what do we not always notice or see about a guy like Logan Hall?
Well, that's the Logan is the one I say, we give like you mentioned, it doesn't get a lot of attention, but Logan has kind of been a starter since he walked in here as well. And he's been on the defense that's won the division back-to-back, and he started a lot of those games, but you haven't seen him because when we go nickel in more of our pass rushing situations, who you want on the field? You want Calijah Vita, Calijah Logan. It's such a fine line, and last night we played a lot of nickel, so we only had 2 defensive linemen out of there. So now Logan loses snaps, but earlier when Calijah was out, Logan was stepping up and had 2-3 sacks against Atlanta. He's really coming on, so that's a kind of a juggling match for me to not lose him because he's making good strides, but happy to have Calijah back and don't want to take Vita off the field. So it's a juggling act really with it all, but the things that he's done, he does everything he has. And then also we know Logan missed a game earlier in the year with a injury, but he came back. Wasn't 100%, but he came back early and really helped us because we were short, really short, and he stepped up, and that's right there he earned my ultimate respect because of me looking at him and like, you saying you okay, but me watching you and seeing you every day, I don't know that you all 100% okay, but that's life in the NFL sometimes. But he is a guy that really is a catalyst for a lot of stuff we do because some of the things is you see Calijah getting the sack, but Logan forced him to him, or stuff like that. So that gets lost in the shuffle because they don't really write a lot of stories about the guy who forced it. They write stories about the guy who finished it. So it all works together. But right now, those 3 are a joy to have.
And then CJ Brewer, talk about someone who's had to step up at times. This guy, all of a sudden, man, I mean, I think about his game against the Falcons last week and made some really big key plays and has had to play some really important snaps for us. So maybe a lot of Bucs fans are not as familiar with him. So tell us a bit about him and what he's brought to the D-line.
Well, CJ is a player we got a couple of years ago from the USFL, and he came in as a long shot to make the team, but he's just done so much. We call him like our Swiss Army knife because of the 3 positions in base. He kind of can play a little bit of them all, so that helps when you need roster flexibility, and very coachable and just stepped up. And I'm sitting here like, we lose Greg for a week and to stick CJ in there. And then not only you stick CJ in there, you get 2 sacks. So, but that's a credit to him because he's done it all off season and in the preseason. We used to just say, wow, CJ, sometimes we were watching film, CJ got 2 sacks, and then we look at the tape and they done turned him loose twice. But for whatever reason, CJ just finds the ball and makes plays.
I like it. All right, we're going to take another quick break here on Buccaneers Total Access. We're talking to defensive line coach and run game coordinator Kacy Rodgers. Brought to you by Advent Health. This is Buccaneers Radio. Welcome back into Buccaneers Total Access. We're talking to defensive line coach and run game coordinator Kacy Rodgers. Later on, we'll have head coach Todd Bowles. We were talking about some of your other guys on the defensive line right before the break, and Greg Gaines is another one who has come in and had to play some pretty important and meaningful snaps, but again, doesn't always get the attention of your other guys. So tell us what he has come to mean to this line.
Once we got Greg, we had evaluated him in free agency, and he flashed or whatever. And honestly, coming in, I was like, well, I wonder how shoes are going to fit. But Greg is sneaky athletic. He's highly intelligent and really kind of like Vita. We said, the beauty about him is a guy that size that can play all 3 downs. And Greg is kind of like that too. And see, I think I might have placed limitations on early on, not really sure of his pass rush ability, but he has the ability to sneaky win one-on-ones and smart and coach and just kind of tough as nails. So really you there, and then what's tough here, usually when you're in free agency, we signed Greg. Greg was a starter at the nose position from the Rams, so we got him. Now you come in here, we have a nose, so that we kind of like a lot.
That's pretty good at it, yeah.
We kind of like, and he comes in, and from a guy who's used to being on the field all the time, fell into a role as rolling in with Vita and didn't miss a beat. That's a credit to him, because a lot of guys, you hear some bickering, why ain't I playing this and that, and I have to say, I know in the meetings, to hear a guy playing 60, 70 snaps a game, now you're playing 20.
Yep.
So that's credit goes off to him. But to have the 1-2 punch at the nose position with him, and then you add CJ and his flexibility, it really does a good job creating depth for us.
Yeah, and then Will Gholston, I feel like this guy, I love it. Yeah, just the smile and the shake of the head. I feel like that just about sums it up. Will is a fan favorite for a lot of different reasons, and just amazing that after as many years at his position and how long he's played, and that position is not an easy one to play this long in the league. So tell us just longevity-wise what he's meant to this franchise, but then even at this point this year, when he, again, does not necessarily get the starting kind of reps or numbers of reps he used to, what has he still meant to this defensive line in meeting rooms, on the field, and even just as a personality?
Well, first of all, you said it right. It's a credit to him to play that position and been playing as long as he's had and still be playing on a high level, because as Father Time is undefeated when it comes to football players. But the thing is, it's a lot of different ways to make a football team, a lot of different ways to find a role. When you say, what is Will's role for us? I have some talented players in the D-line position. But one thing that you always know you're going to get with Will, this and that, is still might be the toughest guy, just straight, tough, nasty that we have at the position. We have some ones that might run faster. We have some that might rush faster, but just downright toughness that you need at that position, it probably hands down him.
Yeah, what is it he does? Jiu-jitsu? I always get.
He does jiu-jitsu,
yeah,
and just
that alone should tell you this man is nothing to be trifled with.
And he got a bad temperament sometimes, which helps, which really helps.
As long as it's directed that way.
There you go. Keep it that way.
Keep it that direction.
But that helps as well.
That's so interesting. And then again, where you're also the run game coordinator. So outside of just even your defensive line, take us through this whole year, the run defense as a whole, all the different units that are a part of that, and where you guys feel like you're at the sort of midway point.
Well, the thing right now for us running, looking at it as a whole, we're still working to work on the consistency where we need to be statistically, and everything is very consistent. Right now we're good, then we give up a big play. Good, then we give up we got to eliminate those, because however they come, they hurt you statistically. A couple of weeks ago in Baltimore, you give up an 80-yard run. Do you know how many plays you got to play well to knock down an 80-yard run? You got one play for 80 yards. Do you know what it takes to get that average back down?
You basically have to get tackles for loss the next 20 times.
There you go. So now you see where we're going. So we got to just keep working on the consistency, because if, most good defense, you want to be under 4 yards or less if you can. If you can hold people under 4 yards to carry, you kind of did. But if you give up a 26-yard run, an 18-yard scramble, or 80, that's gonna hurt. So that's what I say. And rush defense is everything from quarterback scrambles to jet sweeps to the inside run, outside. So it's all that encompassing. So right now for us, it's just figuring out, working out the kinks to become more consistent, because we're gonna have to be good against the run if we want to get to where we want to go the rest of the season.
And what are some of the things you guys do, whether it be in film rooms or practices, to do some of that? Because I feel like Coach Bowles usually uses the terms that it's communication and it's misfit runs. That those are kind of the two things that, but of course that can mean a lot of different things. And what do you guys do mid-season to try to help some of those things happen? Well,
the good thing about heading towards the mid-season mark, you've kind of, the players by this part, because it's always transition with new players, old players leaving, some players returning, you've kind of figured out who you are. So we kind of know what we can do and what we can't do. And from our part as the coaches, say, we're good at this, we ain't good at that. Let's stay away from that. Let's clean this up, and this is the best we got, and go with it going forward.
And then how about the inside linebacker group and the way they've contributed? Again, it's just like Will Levante, this guy that is just seems like he is defeating Father Time in so many ways. And then I know there's been a platoon situation sometimes with KJ and earlier with Servassier and then now JJ Russell as well. And so how have you seen those guys and the way you guys have tried to work on that with the platoon stuff, especially when it comes to the run game?
Well, that's another group you take your hat off because of the way the plan was. Like, you do these jobs, Voss does this job, then all of a sudden you lose Voss. Now, this guy got to take on these jobs, and that's life in the NFL. So the juggling around, and the one constant, as you say, been Levante, who's a really good leader for that position. But I'm saying, as you look at it, but it also goes from our standpoint, well, we like this stuff, but he ain't real good at it. Or what is he good at that we can marry with these guys? So it's a constant struggle to figure out when you are having injuries and you're rearranging or putting some guys here and there. It's like, just because he plays linebacker doesn't mean he's going to play this like that. You know, this guy's a better run stopper. This guy's a better pass cover. This guy's a little of both. This guy's a better blitzer, you know. So it's a constant juggling act from that standpoint. But right now at the halfway mark, you can still kind of figure out, well, you kind of know your people by now.
Yeah. And then how about the outside linebacker group? Again, of course, mostly they get talked about when it comes to the pass rush, but key members of your run defense as well. What have you seen in that part of their game from that position group?
Well, those guys really are probably have to be the most dynamic, because you want them to set the edge on the run. You want them to rush the quarterback. You want them to do this, and then we stun pressure, so we're bringing them inside. You know, you got smaller guys that you bring in inside to where some of the heavy lifting is going on. So it's a credit to them, but they play such a critical role, because if we're trying to stop the run from this direction, they got to make sure we have an edge set on the opposite direction. So the things we ask those guys to do is a credit to them, and we have some talented guys there.
We're talking to defensive line coach and run game coordinator Kacy Rodgers, and quite a task ahead of you this next week, on a short week too. Don't you love that? And also, of course, Christian McCaffrey's practice window opened, so we don't know exactly when and how he's going to be available. But tell me, when you look at their team with and without Christian McCaffrey, the kind of difference that can make on what you guys are having to look at and the way they've been able to do it without him. Also, Deebo Samuel, just kind of the versatility they have and their offense, and what that's going to be like for you guys to prepare for.
Well, this will be a huge challenge, just because you're talking about such a multifaceted team. And, you know, to start with Deebo, he could be anywhere. He could be at the backfield, he could be at the slot, he could be out at number one, he could be motion, he could be jet, and then with the possibility of maybe having McCaffrey back. And the mentality of the team, they are run first team and very hard-headed about it, and they don't really care what you're in. They're going to believe they can run against any front, anything, which then opens up their play-action pass. So Purdy does a great job executing, and it's just like they are one of the more difficult teams we have to prepare for each year. So this will be a big task for us coming up this week.
And what stands out about their offensive line and then Brock Purdy as well, of the two things you guys are going to have to focus about taking them on?
Well, the thing you notice about them, most good teams in this league do what they do, and they do it well. And this personifies what they are. They're going to be hard-headed about the run. They're going to give you a lot of jets and motions and shifts and this, and to get to where they want it to go, where leverage is very advantageous for them. So that poses, because you have no idea once you get there on Sunday what's their plan for you. You know what plays you're going to get, you just don't know how you're going to get them.
Yeah, that's very true. Well, Coach, thank you as always so much for coming on. We really do appreciate the time. And again, we just talked about what a tough task you got on a short week. So again, we are just so appreciative of you taking time out of your day to come and talk to us.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, Coach, thanks again. And thanks to all of you guys for listening to this first half. But we're going to have more coming up here with head coach Todd Bowles right after the break on Buccaneers Total Access, brought to you by Advent Health. This is Buccaneers Radio.